The Israel-Hamas conflict might not be the biggest on the planet, but it is one of the most divisive. The reasons for this might not be obvious. However, the two parties involved can be said to have mutual allies, and this has made it difficult for some countries to pick a side. Although several countries around the world might find it difficult to pick a side, it doesn't appear countries that are considered global superpowers have this problem. But Russia is a break from the norm. You see, unlike the United States, the United Kingdom, and its allies, Russia has struggled to take sides. So, it is interested in bringing this conflict to a halt. But it doesn't quite seem like this will be happening anytime soon. While in a meeting with the leader of the Palestinian people, Putin said Russia will continue to supply the Gaza Strip with essential goods, including medicines and medical equipment. Russia might have tried staying neutral for a long time, but it doesn't seem like it can go on sitting on the fence, and it has finally taken sides with Palestine. Of course, Russia's decision to take sides with Palestine is quite questionable, as Palestine is considered strongly associated with terrorism. Nonetheless, Putin has defended the Kremlin's decision to support Palestine. He has expressly stated this fight started in the first place because the Palestinians do not have a state. Since Russia does not exactly support Israel in its fight with Hamas, it is easy to assume it supports terrorism. But Lavrov cleared the air in Doha. Hamas carried out a terrorist attack on October 7th, which we immediately condemned. Hamas has a political branch operating in Doha, and we have a relationship with that political branch, and we immediately contacted the people in Doha to discuss the fate of the people taken hostage. Palestine is not a sovereign state because of a UN resolution, and Putin thinks this is injustice to the Palestinians. As much as the Palestinians not having a state is bad, even worse is the fact that the Israelis are taking part in several settlement activities. Russia might have finally picked a side in the Israel-Hamas conflict, but why did the Kremlin take so long to finally pick a side? We will find out in a moment. In the meantime, kindly hit the like and share buttons. Also, please subscribe to this channel to see more videos like this. Russia has been very cautious since the start of the Israel-Hamas conflict, and it might be quite difficult to understand its position. However, when the fact that it has a strong relationship with the parties involved in the conflict and with other states in the region is considered, it might become easier to understand why the Kremlin has struggled to take sides. You see, in addition to wanting to maintain a relationship with all the parties involved in this conflict, Russia is looking to get more influential in the Middle East. So, simply taking sides will make this close to impossible. Russia's desire to get more influential in the Middle East is a major reason it is looking to end the Israel-Hamas conflict. It is not the only reason. Another reason the Russians are trying to mediate peace in the Middle East is to show how U.S. policies are quite responsible for the conflict. The United States has offered the Palestinians financial handouts, and this is better than nothing. However, the Russians think differently. The Kremlin believes the Palestinians might do well with some financial aid, but that is not all they need. The Palestinians need statehood, but apparently the Americans have ignored this. Right now, it is easy to say Russia has taken sides with the Palestinians. Nonetheless, it is still pushing for an end to this war. One way it is showing this is by keeping the lines of communication between both sides open. The diplomatic relationship between Russia and countries in the Middle East might not be mainstream, but it has been in existence for quite a while. During the Cold War, the Russians supported the Palestinians, and in the process, they provided them with both military and diplomatic support. This strained the diplomatic ties between Israel and the Soviet Union, ultimately bringing an end to their diplomatic relationship just before the collapse of the Soviet Union. The years after the collapse of the Soviet Union were dark for the Kremlin, so Russia couldn't take part in external activities, as the Russians focused on rebuilding. While trying to get Russia back to a place of prominence, Moscow maintained its relationship with Israel. But that was not all. There were also attempts at building ties with the Arabs. So after making his way to the seat of power, Putin led Russia to join the United Nations, the European Union, and the United States in trying to mediate peace in the Middle East. The involvement of the Russians in bringing peace to the Middle East is not as pronounced as that of the United States. Regardless of this, it joined forces with Iran in 2015 to offer Bashar Assad of Syria some support during the Syrian civil war. After the Russians released bombers and troops to Syria, Bashar Assad was back in control. Of course, Assad is not in total control of the Middle East, but he controls the majority. Due to the role the Russians played in helping Syria get stable, Russia's influence grew significantly in the Middle East. It is quite clear how Russia was able to build its influence in the Middle East, and what its relationship with the Arab world is. But what is the relationship between Israel and Russia like, and how close are they? While the Soviet Union existed, Israel and Moscow did not have such a great relationship. Fortunately, there has been a lot of positive change since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and Russia and Israel have strengthened economic ties. The relationship between Russia and Israel has remained intact, even though Iran is a Russian ally. Iran and Israel are sworn enemies. The relationship between Israel and Russia has been tested severely, and it doesn't look like one that will be crumbling soon. This relationship was slightly strained during the Syrian civil war. This happened after Assad's forces shot down a recon aircraft that belonged to Russia, and this was the Syrian military's way of responding to an Israeli airstrike. The bombing of a Russian recon jet is not the only time the relationship between Israel and Russia has been tested. Russia's invasion of Ukraine also significantly tested this relationship. In very much the same way Russia has been careful since the Israel-Hamas conflict became a thing, when Putin invaded Ukraine, Israel was not in support of his unending occupation of Ukraine. But the only thing it could offer Kiev was pity. There was no military support of any kind. And just like Russia is pushing for a resolution between Israel and Hamas, the Israeli government could only hope for a resolution of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Ukrainians questioned Israel's refusal to get involved in their invasion by the Russians. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu justified his government's action by clearly stating Israel did not get involved in the Russia-Ukraine conflict because it needed to keep its relationship with Russia in a great place. The relationship between Israel and Ukraine has changed since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came into power. Unlike his predecessor, who was more sympathetic toward the Ukrainians, things are different with Netanyahu. The difference between the two governments is that the previous government was 100% ideologically sympathetic to Ukraine and sought to support Ukraine as much as it could, without totally alienating the Russians. This government is less concerned about ideological sympathies. They are not interested in seeing democracy trump dictatorship, nor would they be necessarily happy to see international sanctions succeeded, as they might fear a precedent. While speaking of the relationship between Russia and Israel, Putin said to an Arab TV channel, "We have very stable, business-like relations with Israel. We have had friendly relations with Palestine for decades. Our friends know this, and Russia, in my opinion, could also make its contribution to the settlement process." Now that we know what the relationship between Israel and Russia is, to better understand Russia's position in the Israel-Hamas crisis, it is important we know what the relationship between Palestine and Russia is, what it was, and how it evolved. You see, the Soviet Union helped the Palestinians with lots of economic and military support during the Cold War. The Soviet government took it upon itself to train and arm Palestinian forces. Although this relationship ended with the fall of the Soviet Union, since coming into power, Putin has taken steps to build the relationship between Palestine and Russia. Now we have established the relationship between Russia and Israel and Russia and Palestine, but there is more. The conflict between Israel and Hamas might be between two parties. Sadly, there are more than two players. Iran might not be directly involved. Nonetheless, they are also big players. This makes it important to know what the relationship between Russia and Iran is like. You see, Russia and Iran did not always have a great relationship. However, the end of the Soviet Union changed this relationship. At the moment, Russia has helped Iran with developments in the nuclear space. In the same vein, Iran has provided some support for the Kremlin's attack on Ukraine. Russia's support to bring peace to the Middle East has been interpreted differently by various countries, with Ukraine having the worst interpretation. Zelensky of Ukraine has accused Russia of being interested in triggering a war in the Middle East so that a new source of pain and suffering could undermine world unity, increase discord and contradictions, and thus help Russia destroy freedom in Europe. The Kremlin's support of Palestine is still a big deal, and one that lots of people might never understand. However, it just might be the Kremlin's way of getting the support of the Middle East if it has to defend itself against a full-scale conflict with NATO or any of its perceived enemies from the West. So this is where we draw the curtains today. Thanks for going all the way. What do you think the result of Russia's support for Palestine will be? Kindly tell us in the comments section below. Before moving on, please like and share this video. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon to avoid missing our other videos. See you in the next video.